All right, thank you. She's pretty well voiced, though. In the graduate school, we are committed to helping our students find fulfilling and challenging jobs, and jobs that will put to good use all the good things that they learned at the University of Oregon. And especially in our PhD programs, that used to mean finding faculty jobs. But the academic job market is not what it used to be. To be honest, I'm not sure that the academic job market is what anybody ever thought it used to be. Now, on the one hand, that's kind of discouraging to graduate students, but on the other hand, I think the world is changing in ways that are creating new opportunities for people who have the kinds of skill and knowledge that come with a graduate degree. Things like increased globalization, digitalization are among the trends that have led to newfound respect for people with graduate degrees. These are the kinds of skills that our graduate students take for granted having, but they're becoming very, very valuable. But there's still this little distribution lag matching new grads with these new jobs. And that's why we focused this first year of the Distinguished Alumni Speaker Program on alumni speakers who had made their marks outside of academia and in non-faculty positions. So first off this year we had CDC entomologist William Hawley, a specialist on mosquito-borne illness. It kind of made us all itch, but it was a really great talk. At the end of last term, we had heard from historian John Schertz, who provided some fascinating and really insightful observations about law and Native American water rights, some in the Pacific Northwest and also in other areas of the country. And then after today's speaker, Fei Mao, who Bruce Brencho and Dave Tyler, mostly Dave will introduce, we're looking forward to another biology PhD alum, Dennis Liu, who's a film director and head of educational and media executive director at Tangled Bank Studios, which is the film studio which is associated with the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. So he's a science communicator, so this should be a really interesting talk as well. His talk will be on May 11th, Thursday, May 11th, which is also, I just have to put in a plug, the eve of the Graduate School's Graduate Research Forum, which maybe some of you will be presenting at. That's happening Friday, May the 12th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the EMU this year. So we hope to see you at both of those events in May, another distinguished alum, plus some distinguished alums to be talking about their research. So plan on hearing him, but now for today's main event, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Tyler, who will introduce Fei Mao.
Thanks, Sarah. I am so excited that I get to introduce one of my former graduate students, Dr. Fei Mao. Fei is on campus, as Sarah mentioned, because Bruce Branchot and I nominated him for a Distinguished Alumni Speaker presentation, so that's why he's here. And so let me tell you a little bit about Fei. He arrived in 1985 from China, okay? And I was so excited that he wanted to join my research group because he was one of the original, we called it in this country, Harvard-China program students. In China, they really hadn't yet learned about branding, and it was just called the Chemistry Graduate Program. So a little bit low-key. But let me tell you about that program because it was really amazing. In 1981, Bill During, a professor at Harvard, organic professor at Harvard, went to China, and he convinced the Chinese Ministry of Education that if China was ever going to come into the modern age in chemistry, that what they needed to do was to send their very best students to the US to get a graduate degree. China bought into it, and so what they did was they had a very rigorous program to select the very, very, very best. Okay, and so there's about 40 students a year, and the program went on for about 5 or 6 years. Okay, now, Bill During also said the following: this program will only work if these students go to the very best chemistry departments in the US. Okay, and the University of Oregon's chemistry department was selected as one of about 25 departments that was eligible to receive these 40 superstar students from China. Now you might ask, why is that? Of course we have a very good department, but what else separated us from other departments? Well, it was Virgil Beckelheide, our colleague Virgil Beckelheide. It turns out he was a very good friend with Bill During, and so Virgil made sure that the University of Oregon's chemistry department was on that list. And the only reason I bring that up is because one of the things we hammer into our students is that networking is incredibly important. And so there's an example of networking really paying off for, in terms of us being able to take students from the Harvard-China program. Anyway, like I said, I was incredibly excited when Fei decided to join my research group. He worked in my group for about 4.5 years, and then in 1990, he got his PhD. And I don't know if you know this, I mean, you wouldn't know this, but I keep scrupulous track of my graduate students' progress. So a couple days ago, I went back and reviewed my notes on you, Fei, and I had a bunch of comments written. One of them was inventive. And it wasn't just inventive, it was inventive with an exclamation point.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that just fits you to a T. And another thing that I noted was I had written several times in my notes about you, it said, has a plan, okay, with an exclamation point.
But that one's wrong.
Well, no, the plan, as I remember it, was that you would come into my office and you would tell me that your goal in life was to live the American dream and start a company of your own. Okay, and your plan for doing that was you were going to go to graduate school, get a PhD, go work in industry where you would learn about how industry works, you would learn about networking, establish some contacts, and when the time was right, you would start your own company. And that's exactly what he did. So when he left my research group, he went to work for Molecular Probes, where he invented, I wrote these down, Alexaflor, is that right? Alexaflor and another series of dyes called, very creatively, MF, or did I have that backwards? FM dyes. Yeah. And I'm told that they're used throughout the life sciences.
Neuroscience.
Yeah, and neuroscience, okay? After that, Fei went to work for a company called TheraSense with Adam Heller, where he co-invented a glucose monitor, and I'm told just secondhand that Abbott Laboratories sells over 1 billion of those glucose monitors a year. That strikes me as impressive, okay? Anyway, after this time, after working in industry, Mao then realized the time was ripe to start his business, so he started his first company, Biotium, and then he also co-founded a company, excuse me, Mao, this one I do have to look up, Neurocentria. And so at that point, I think I'm into what your talk is probably going to be about, so I will turn the floor over to you, but let me just say welcome and thanks for coming back, Fei.
Thank you for the microphone working now. Thank you for the introduction, Dave. Actually, this is the first time I learned something more about this Harvard program. I feel more privileged and unbelievably lucky. Somehow, accidentally I got into this program. You know. First, well, thank you. Thank you for, I think that was excessive praise. You know, I mean, that was, you never told me about that, you know, when I was your graduate student, all those things. It's been a long time. You know, yesterday I first flew from the Bay Area to Portland, and then boarded onto a tiny airplane. The moment I got onto the airplane, I instantly reminded me how I got to the United States. For the first time, you know, ever, boarded an airplane from Shanghai to San Francisco, and then switched to a tiny plane like that. So my memory instantly flashed out, you know. Well, I knew I was going to Eugene, you know. And then, of course, after I landed, seeing all those familiar buildings, you know, and also the rain and the friends. And also last night I met two of my former lab mates. My gosh, they're just, memory works like wonder, you know. It's a great feeling. I want to thank the university, you know, for inviting me, giving me this opportunity to talk about, you know, my life so far. You know, when you get a title, like this, talking about experiences, you know you are no longer young. You know, you're getting old, unfortunately. But fortunately, I used to be young. As you can see, fresh from China, kind of nerdy looking, maybe speaking incomprehensible English. But I had a really fond memory. And it was you all, of course, you know, that gave me the opportunity to start my professional scientific career. And for that, I can't thank you all enough. It's really a privilege, to be here talking about this. Looking back, if I have achieved something in my life at this point, of course I made some personal effort in myself. But to a great extent, I think it's because I met some amazing people, mentors in my life, who guided me at various points of my life. That, I think, really made a difference. So I don't know how to advise young people, how to meet your advisor. I think it just happened in my life. And for that, I really want to thank Professor, my PhD advisor, David Tyler. Young professor, I think 33 or something. He's still young looking. I remember, he, as I said, he convinced me to join his group, and I did. I was really attracted to his enthusiasm and his chemistry. 19 electron complexes, which I never learned because in my college I only learned about 18. I never knew 19 existed. So something new. So I thought I would try, to give it a try, see what happens. A couple of months later, I started to regret a little bit. The chemistry was really tough. It takes days to get things ready because the chemicals I would handle are so unstable. I had to do everything under nitrogen, and sometimes I had to do things in the dark. That was challenging, but fortunately, I got help from my lab mates. Of course, all the 4-year, 5-year experience was worthwhile precisely because the chemistry, what I was doing, was so challenging. It made everything I did afterwards easy. Great training. So thank you. Then after, the other thing is, I remember we used to work really late into the night, 10 or 11 p.m., and he would come in asking me, Mao Fei, anything exciting? I mean, Mao Fei being the way Chinese would call me, right? Family name first. And most of the time I would say, not much, he was probably disappointed. But still, we had moments of excitement. Great time together. So if you would ask me today, what's exciting today? I can tell you a lot of exciting things going on. Briefly, at the moment, I'm running 2 companies at the same time. The first one is BioTeam. It's a fluorescent reagents company. So what we do is we provide innovative fluorescent reagents for life science research. And these fluorescent molecules, I would call them little spy molecules. You would put them into a biological system, and then they would come back and they tell you where they are and what they're detecting. So you get lots of information on that. So they're really useful. Sometimes they are called molecular probes because they tell you things. Primarily, they do 3 things. First, it helps visualizing a biological structure. If you look under a microscope, cellular structures, you would not be able to make much out of it because maybe because of the reflection of light, you will see something, but not a lot of details. Same thing is true with the piece of tissues. So with these fluorescent dyes, what you can do is you can strategically dye different parts of the molecules. And with different colors, you can then visualize things, multiple things at the same time. And this would be a good example. As you can see here, you're seeing cellular structures where you see this green-colored fiber, plus some red-colored compartments. In this case, the lysosome, compartment of lysosome. But you can do multiple colors. You can put 2, 3, 4, 5. With modern imaging technology, you can really do amazing things. The second task is that they can be used to detect the presence or absence, or sometimes the concentration of a biological molecule of importance. For instance, you can use these fluorescent dyes to detect a biological molecule associated with, let's say, cancer, or certain infections, for example. So there are practical applications. They can be used for human diagnostics, for detecting cancer or other things. A third function is that they can be used to follow a biological system over time. And like so that you can watch a movie, see how things unfold. Very useful. You know, you can get tons of information on that. You can actually put some of these fluorescent probes into living animals to follow over time for years sometimes. At this time, we provide over 3,000 fluorescent reagent products. If you add some of the recently added antibody, for example, the number could exceed 20,000. So a lot of products to manage. What really makes us proud is that we have, over the years, we have developed a number of dye technologies that really make us stand out, make us a leader in certain fields. It's these technologies that make us grow and also elevate us as innovative companies. So I'm going to go back and talk a little bit more about this. The other company, Neurocentria, is a very different company. This company, I mean, the other company was, is run with personal, financial resources. But this company is run with other people's money. You might think you would choose this one, right? Not as easy as you think. But this is a company is dedicated to finding a treatment for neurological diseases, such as Alzheimer's disease, or neuropsychiatric diseases such as schizophrenia, or adult ADHD, for example. These are just some of the examples. So now, going back 30 years, you might ask, how, at the time, how did I decide? Did I really plan out, like David said? Well, yes and no. I might have, I don't know how you got the impression I had a plan. Maybe I did. And then I forgot. Okay, I didn't pursue. At the time of graduation, that wasn't something I was thinking. Maybe I was more ambitious when I started, and then, Well, for complicated reason, at the time I decided I would go to industry. But I should say that I had some preconceived, some biased opinion about going into industry at the time. Because I consider myself as a hardcore science-minded scientist. I would really like to challenge myself, doing complicated, challenging stuff. That was my thinking. So, I mean, the best way, I think maybe a professor, right, like one of you. But anyway, there was a change of plan, So I went to industry. At the time, I got 2 offers. One offer would let me continue to do what I was doing for my PhD, which would be like inorganic chemistry, working on metal complexes, things like that. The second choice would be working in organic chemistry space. I would be making organic molecules. That would be totally different from what I did in graduate school. It would be a challenge. But I decided to take that challenge. Just try something different. This actually, it's just me. Sometimes, I don't know. I always wanted to try something different. But this has worked out for me so far. So the company that I decided to work for is Molecular Probes, that I'm sure many of you already know, which was also in the business of developing fluorescent dye molecules for life science research. And the company was founded by Richard Hoagland. And sadly, I learned that Dick passed away last year. I really consider him as a friend, a very important mentor. I just learned so much from him. Dick, he somehow trusted me more than I trusted myself. Somehow he thought that I had the super, power to do things. And the other thing is that he always challenged me on things that I wasn't good at to begin with. For example, I should add another story. I was still very, at the time, very curious how actually he hired me. I remember at the end of the interview, he said to me, I hope it's not too risky to hire you, but I'm going to give you an offer. But he also said, your boss will give you an unbelievably glowing letter of recommendation. So I think David, I think whatever you said did the trick. And this letter just changed my life. And I thank you for that. So when I joined the company, he also put me into charge of 2 other PhD organic chemists. And that was amazing because I wasn't organic chemist to begin with. And so that was a lot of pressure. I really had to learn my organic chemistry in a hurry. During the graduate school, I didn't do any much organic chemistry, but I did take an organic chemistry synthesis class from Professor Bruce Bangshaw. He's really one of my best teachers. And he always takes his time, write things on the board. I really hate professors, using the slide projector, and cover everything, and then with one line showing, that's, because I really like that way of teaching, the writing things on the board. That gives me an extra few seconds to put my thoughts together. So great teachers, Some feedback for some of the other professors, But Bruce never taught me how to do chemistry in a flask. I didn't know any of the common techniques. But I was a leader. I was being put as a leader. I had to lead other people. So it would be really embarrassing for me to ask my colleagues how to do things. So what I would do, I would just, in the beginning, I just pretend to know how to do things, and then keep an eye, using my peripheral vision to watch my colleagues and how to do TLC and other stuff. And the other strategy is to work hard, to work long hours. I think even to this day, some of my former colleagues may not even know. I would stay till sometimes midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And I think I worked every weekend. So I did that a few months, and then thankfully with the chemistry, organic chemistry theory that I learned, it wasn't too hard. I picked up the skills. At that point, I also recognized I actually had an advantage over my other colleagues or other organic chemists because I had a pretty strong physical chemistry background. That enabled me to predict, giving me a structure. I would know exactly what kind of physical property I would get in terms of color, brightness, that kind of thing, how things would function. I could also do the reverse. Building the structure to give me the desired properties. So in other words, I started to do inventive things, to try to change things around. And then I had another challenge. I realized I had to learn biology because our products at the time were to serve biologists. So without knowing biology, it was really difficult. To know the purpose of what I was doing every day, to communicate with the colleagues, biology colleagues within the company, and also our customers. So I decided I must study biology. So I started reading textbooks, starting with biochemistry by Robert Stryer, fantastic, because that serves as a bridge between chemistry and biochemistry. And then went on with molecular biology of the cell, molecular biology of the gene, and so on and so forth. After these 3 books, I had a pretty good idea. And I couldn't claim I was a biologist, but I knew enough that I could communicate with the customers, could read life science papers, and made everything I was doing meaningful. So that experience, so talking about challenging me, biologists know that molecular probes has this catalog book, they call it the handbook of fluorescent probes. It lists all the products, but it also has a very extensive summary of how those products are used in the literature. So it's like a review papers. He put me in charge of writing a section for membrane potential dyes. That is an area related to neuroscience. So I started learning neuroscience, reading books. Again, it was just fascinating. Neuroscience, if I could, if I have a second life, I definitely go into that area. It's just fascinating. Of course, you will take other disciplines, physics and chemistry. It's just fascinating. I became really interested. But that experience also laid a really laid a foundation for a very important collaboration that I was going to have with Professor Bill Betts at the University of Colorado. Bill is a neuroscience researcher specializing in the synaptic transmission. In other words, the communication between neurons or communication between neuron and muscle cells, very important areas. So what I have here is like a sketch of a synapse, the connection point between two neurons. One neuron would release a small molecule called a neurotransmitter, and then the next one catches the chemical, and then that causes a cascade of chemical and the physical reaction. I mean, this is basically what's going on in our mind, when we do things. Our brain just functions like that. Neural circuits functions like this by communicating from one cell to another. So understanding, having a tool to study this would be really important. That collaboration was extremely successful. And it led to my very first invention, FM-143. You notice this is a trademark here. I'm not allowed to use my name anymore. With this fluorescent probes, one can monitor the communication. If you have activities, fluorescent will blink green, for example. So it was really useful tools. The collaboration research results were published in Nature and Science. Some of the images actually made the cover of Nature and Science. So that at the time was a breakthrough. And the really interesting thing is that it really taught me something. Because the chemistry to make this dye was extremely simple. I mean, give the structure to any organic chemistry. That person will be able to do it. But I think the key for this invention was this connection, the understanding of two different fields, the communication. So this really taught me a really important lesson. So I applied that lesson over and over again in my life to keep changing, trying to understand what other people are doing. I'm telling you this story also because 15 years later, it led to the unexpected discovery that led to the founding of my pharmaceutical company. So this all in life, sometimes things just converge, But in terms of the importance, economic value of the invention, I would say the most important invention that I made at Molecular Probes is probably the alexidide, the series of alexidide that David mentioned. I studied the chemistry and the research, and then my colleagues later added a few. And again, these days, if you open up a life science journal, it's really hard to find a journal, without using the alexidide. It's just popular, just used worldwide, I'm happy for that, for molecular probes and now thermal fissions. So I worked there for 8.5 years, and I thought maybe I should try something else. That was at the height of the .com. People at the time hear stories of Intel, Apple, Cisco, and those. It was fascinating. But of course, I realized switching from chemistry to computer science is probably a little too hard for me. So maybe then I thought, there's some space in between. I could do something in between, right? So this is why I went to Silicon Valley, and I joined a company called Therasens, founded by this man, the man on the left, not on the right, Professor Adam Heller, School of Engineering at University of Texas. He's just an amazing man, extremely brilliant, and knows just about everything. I'm talking about the knowledge in multiple disciplines. He was trained as a chemist, but knows about electronics, engineering, medicine, you name it. I think that was the reason for his entrepreneur, success. He and his son started and sold many companies. And when I first joined the company, there were 4 companies under the same roof. It just was amazing. Amazing mentor for me. And we're still friends. He's 83. He would still come to my lab and discuss all kinds of stuff, topics with me. He's very active. So this is the picture that in 2011, when he received the Presidential Medal of Innovation at the White House. That's the highest honor for any industrial inventor. So Adam developed this idea to make a implantable continuous glucose sensor. Diabetes is a terrible disease, and it's even worse for children with type 1, for example, because you would have to normally prick your fingers to get a drop of blood. And I heard a horrible story of kids, afraid of sitting on parents' lap because they would know the parents are going to prick their fingers. So it's something, a project I worked on that really also touched my heart. It had a really purpose of working on this kind of subject. So he developed the initial idea, but sometimes to take a university idea developed in a university lab to a company to become a product, there could be a huge gap in between you have to fill. To publish a paper is easy, but to actually have a product, there's just so many things you have to take care of. So I was hired to develop this material on top of this sensor, which is at the core of the whole technology. And to develop medical devices, it's really a multidisciplinary task, requiring chemistry, biochemistry, biology, mechanical engineering, electronic engineering, software, medicine, regulatory. So it was really a totally different experience. And you work with people coming from all over the world, people in different professions. It was exciting. But the challenge was that my job was number one step. Without my material, I think the company, it would not be able to survive, to put it that way. So that was a huge pressure on me. But fortunately, to develop this material, it just happens. It would require someone to have knowledge in inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, physical chemistry, and some biology. I was a lucky man. I did everything before that. So that was just the perfect fit for me. And I was very lucky. So I come up with the material. It was very successful. I want to show you, first of all, the company, from the founding to the time it was acquired by Abbott, was sold for $1.3 billion in 6 years. Wildly successful. But it could have been even more successful if the dot-com, hadn't crashed. I mean, people working there actually daydreaming to become rich every day. But I think still most of the people made enough money, even though not enough to retire. But still a happy ending was good. So this is how the final product looks like. So this button looks like, right? This is where the electronic is housed. But if you look, the real secret is in the back. You look at the back here. This is a fine needle, a tiny sensor, thinner than the hair. On top of that, the bulk of the material is the carbon material, carbon-based ink material. On top of that, there are 2 layers of material. There's a so-called sensing layer, and there's also a membrane layers. And I invented these materials. So in terms of economic value, I think this is worth a lot. And also, of course, the most important thing that really made my job satisfactory was that it helps a lot of people. I feel lucky that I had the opportunity to work with great people, to work on a project that can change the lives of people's life. Great feeling, And so this is how it looks like, when you wear it. And you can download the data, with the receiver. This is so far it's the most advanced continuous glucose sensors. You can, right now the product is available in Europe, in the United States. It's available from the doctor's office. I think eventually they have the plan to expand that so people can do their own implantation, That's actually the challenging part, So after the company was acquired by Abbott, in a large company, they tend to focus more on the sales and the marketing of a successful product. instead of trying completely new things. So in a way, my job was done. And I felt maybe it was time for me to do something else. And I naturally thought about maybe going back to what I was good at, doing more chemistry, fluorescent molecules for life science research. So I told my plan to the company, and the company tried to retain me and made me an offer. The CEO said I could work on anything, any subject I choose, just to stay here. That was nice. I said I really made up my mind. I thank you for this offer. And then they come back with another offer. And how about this? You would come here once a week, just give them advice. We will still pay you full salary. What deal, right? So naturally, I accepted that offer. Great company to work for. You want to work for this kind of company, I tell you, the great companies. Even more amazingly, at that time, Abbott had a facility on the East Coast. They wanted to shut down. So they decided to help me to start my company. They would give me a whole bunch of user equipment. So that really was a great help. First, I had a steady income. I had some equipment. I really didn't expect that. It just happened. So now I want to tell you, of course, building a company is not so easy. Sometimes you only hear a success story from Silicon Valley. There are a lot of failed ones. 9 out of 10 will fail. So if you want to do something like that, be prepared. 9 out of 10 will fail. You're lucky if you're using somebody else's money, right? If you start with your own money, be careful. So I want to tell you a few lessons, 7 lessons. The first is that, first of all, definitely there are different styles of starting a company. This is just my style. So keep that in mind. So my wife and I co-founded the company. We decided we would, with the little income that we had, we would start slow, just do one step at a time, just see how things, pan out. So we would try to save money, start slow. Have heard a lot of Silicon legends starting their company from their own garage, Steve Jobs, HP, and all those things. But doing chemistry in your own garage is probably not a good idea, right? And plus, the law enforcement may not like that either. Anyway, so the closest thing we could do is to rent a garage, So looking from the front, this is a little small unit. But if you look at it from the back, it's a real garage, just like very similar to the garage at home. 70% of the space is the garage, with a roll-up door. 30% is the office area. And that's the humble beginning. That's how we started. This picture is worth showing because this was the very first equipment we actually spent money to buy. It's a used fume hood. I bought it from an auction in the East Coast. $300. Great deal, right? But then when we received the bill, it was like a couple of thousand. What happened? Because shipping costed, a lot more money. Here's the lesson. You gotta be careful. Of course, in order to save money, you can try to do things yourself. And that's exactly how we did it. So at the beginning, I was the electrician, rewiring stuff. I was the plumber to fix the toilet and everything. I'm really sorry. Turn this thing off. And I was the instrument repairman because we got a whole bunch of used instruments, right? So we tried to start the manual, figure out how things work. And once in a while, I had to climb up to the roof to fix a leak or something, right? Or the ventilation system. Fortunately, I acquired some of these skills early on when I was a poor student. I remember I spent $800. I bought a car, a Datsun, which is, I think, predecessor of the Nissan, right? I drove it for 3 years, and then we sold it for $350. Not a bad deal. And being poor, right? I tried to do everything myself. I practically fixed all the problems myself. I remember one time I took the engine out, laid out all the parts on the ground, and I eventually managed to put everything together. Because I had to, it was smoking, the black smoke, because I knew that the cylinder ring had to be replaced. It was a lot of work, but also fun, And then after I had a job, I bought a house, which actually wasn't too far away, from David Tyler. Even though I was busy, didn't have much time to interact too much. I did a lot of things to the house. Hopefully the house is still standing. Did the flooring, changed the patio door, you name it, stuff. But I think I followed the rule, I did it correctly, it was a good job. So all those skills and I just came handy. So, but again, I never planned that. I didn't plan to acquire those skills just for this moment. No, just happened again. So the second lesson is that working hard and working happily. I'm sure you all understand that you need to work hard, right? When you start your company, it's like you're on a survival mode every single day. You don't know what's going to happen next door. Next day, next month, next year. Working hard was never a problem. When you're working for yourself, when you see all the instruments and stuff, realizing this is your stuff, it was joyful, actually. The only part we had to do is to work creatively. Because at the time, we had a 2-year toddler. And we didn't want to spend money to hire a nanny. So what we did is that we set up a tent in the office area in the company. And we would put my daughter into that tent and let her play, eat, and sleep, while mom and dad are working in the lab, till maybe 10 or 11 p.m. And then we would go home. And in those days, we had one of those old fax machines, the paper with perforated, edge, so when we start to work, it makes this squeaky noise. So once in a while, in midnight, 1 or 2 a.m., the machine will start working, kicking on, making this noise. It's not a noise to us. It's the sound of music, sound of success, sound of business opportunity. Because we knew when that happens, we were getting orders from our international customers, from Japan or from Israel. So those, when that happens, we'll make our day. We'll just, get up and start working again. It's just really exciting. So the other thing is that when you start a company, how do you make yourself stand out, especially their competition, right? There are bigger guys there, right? How do you convince the people that they should buy your products? Of course, it's a high-tech company, innovation, right? Innovation takes time. You need to know what to innovate. You can innovate something you think is best, but if nobody buys it, that's a problem, right? You can waste all your resources. So we thought we would start by providing high-quality products that are really traditionally difficult to make. So we can, have an edge. So that's how we started. And we were successful to convince customers. We knew what we were doing. And our products, the quality, were better than the competitors. That, of course, sometimes, when you're doing a good job, customer would, like to contact you, right? They want to find out, want to ask you questions and stuff. You get just more activity, business activity. So one of the trouble we had is that sometimes we get phone calls from customers. We knew we were small. A one-man and one-woman company. We don't want people to know that's a family secret. Don't want to project a weakness. So one trick we did that, we spent $2,000 or $3,000 on a fancy telephone system. So I'm sure you all had experience when you call up a company to ask something, right? You will get a robotic message. If you are interested in buying the product, press 1. If you need a customer help, customer support, press 2. If you want to reach someone, press the first 2 letters, something like that. That's how we did it. But of course, all the extension went to one person, which is my wife. Yeah, only the customer knew the secret, okay, right? So to deal with, you might think, well, yeah, you may have that challenge with the US customers. What about international customers? The thing is, yeah, it's true. The international customer will rarely call us. They send a fax. But then the thing is, when you are doing a really good job, they want to come visit you. That's exactly what happened. We had a Japanese company. That's a branch of a bigger conglomerate. They told us, well, you guys are doing such a good job, right? Our customers really love your products. We would like to come visit it. So we can talk about, expand the business relationship. My God, that was, we didn't know how to reply. Try to figure out the excuse. But we thought that, it wouldn't work anyway. So eventually they came with the head of the conglomerate, who's probably been in there. We never expected that, with 2 or 3 assistants. We still tried, I was still thinking, could we still figure out a strategy? Maybe we could meet them at the airport, or maybe rent a place, nice place for a day, or hire some actor, to pretend we're big. No, it wouldn't work. So we decided, we're going to face the reality. If it's going to affect our business a bit, right? We have other customers. So eventually they came, and I put them into the conference room. And still I was thinking, maybe I just keep talking to them, eventually wear them out, they're hungry, then I just take them to a nice restaurant, right? We can talk more there. Just don't go to the lab. No, the Japanese, they were really nice, of course. They wanted to see the lab. They wanted to know how we could possibly produce high-quality products. They want to know how we did it. It's a moment of truth, right? I opened the door. Of course, they could see from wall to wall, tiny place, one single hood, a couple benches. And maybe with all the plumbings you can see on the roof, there wasn't a drop-down ceiling, with even some insulating material dangling over there. So, it made me really, really nervous. And they went in, took some pictures, and then they left. So I kept thinking afterwards. I was wondering what they must be thinking on the way to the airport. Are we going to lose this deal? Right? They were important customers. But anyway, fortunately, we didn't. They trusted us. And then after that, of course, we had other customers who also came. We had more confidence slowly because we realized it is the quality of our product that really makes a difference. And they understand how you start a company. So in the early 2004, luck came out of our way. Something really important happened. Molecular probes, our major competitor, was acquired by a big company, Invention. At the time, molecular probes had a number of cutting-edge, really important technology that were licensed to other large companies. Invention being a big company, of course, they have their own competitor, right? And the companies are like human beings. You have friends, you have competitors, you have enemies. Invention had an enemy. There was another company called Strategy at the time. I don't know the whole story. Historically, they didn't have a good relationship. So they licensed one of their dyes called the cyber dyes from molecular probes. They got really nervous because they don't know when they may lose that right. They just felt nervous. So they came to us, asked us, could you guys develop something, alternative to that? We would be much happier to license from you. What an opportunity, right? I just mentioned a while ago, you can innovate. But what if you innovated, nobody buys. So we know there's a market already. We should focus on this thing. So that's what we did. We luckily, we spent 6 months. We successfully come up with this dye technology called evergreen dye, our very first invention, and also one of the most important. This dye right now has been licensed to over a dozen companies, big and small, international and domestic. And the technology has been used now recently in human diagnostics for doing genetic-based detections. And after licensing this technology to Invention, rumors spread. Other companies start to come. The BioRed, Kyogen, and other companies. So things just start to really take off, And we started to generate incomes. We could hire more people, do more inventions. That's a good time to keep, doing more invention. And because, as I said earlier, to run a high-tech company, especially in the Bay Area, you cannot sell things cheap. It was never our idea to compete on price, because that you would be racing to the bottom. There's no point. We want to offer high-quality, innovative technology to our customers and charge them a premium price. That's our philosophy. So after the first inventions, like we just opened a floodgate, right? I mean, it was just invention after inventions. And over the years, we have invented a number of things. That really helped us, elevated the bio team as an innovative company. So these days, we would sometimes regularly get a visit from some of our major licensees, and to check with us. Anything new, right? That's a good status to be, Of course, if you don't have any innovation, you're definitely in trouble if you're running a high-tech company, right? But when you have lots of inventions, you will get other problems, protections. Because if you don't protect your products, other people are going to steal your stuff, big or small. Small companies, they will just try anyway, hoping that you're not going to do anything. And if you do anything, they will say, OK, we're going to shut down. Then they know going all the way to the court will be expensive, right? They're betting on that. Large companies, they can bully you. Large companies, they have dozens of lawyers sitting there doing nothing, but just looking for trouble, So, but still, patent protection is really important. I mean, there are other ways to protect your IP, right? Trademark, trade secrets, the different way of doing things. But talking about a patent, the quality of the patent is really important. I mean, you can have a patent which, if it's not well written, it can actually give you trouble, because a competitor can take a look at your patent. Well, I understand the mechanism. I just do it this way, design around. So don't think when you have a patent, you have a protection. A patent is a live document. It's a piece of legal document. It never ends, So people can even challenge you later on. So having high-quality patent, of course, it's going to cost you, right? I can't remember for what reason. David told me in college that, hey, Mao Fei, if we're in this country, if you want to hire a lawyer, always go for the best one. I remember that, Always go for the best one. I guess like a brain surgeon, right? You don't want to, go cheap. That's what we did. Expensive lawyer, $800 an hour. And sometimes I don't know why. I'm getting called to the office, talk to them. Sometimes 3 of them in front of me, talking about nonsense and stuff, vacation, and 3 times 800. The money just goes down to the drain really fast in seconds, But we had to do stuff, right? In order to save money, one thing I did that I always wrote the first draft of my patent, and I learned that skill when I was working for Theracents. I had the opportunity to work with lawyers. I learned tons of stuff. I also studied the books on the laws. I mean, any of you, if you want to start your own company, high-tech company, you're going to have patents. Be really knowledgeable about patents, how to file them, how to protect them. If you don't do it right, it could be really trouble, later on. So that helped. And also, I think it made the quality of the protection better. It's really important. I can't emphasize anymore on that. So, I mentioned that, over the years, we developed, over a dozen, key technologies. But I just want to highlight a few, to give you an idea how sometimes they work, how they are used. Evergreen, I mentioned that. Since that invention, when you have a great invention, right, it does wonder. Then other inventors, they start to invent things on top of this. Recently, there was an invention from Stanford, invented a way to do digital PCR using this dye. And there was another invention from UCLA, using this one in combination with another one, made secondary inventions. So that happens all the time. And I should mention, this dye technology was used by the U.S. Army in Afghanistan, to detect biological warfare, because it's based on genetic detections. This nuclear view is really cool technology. It allows you to detect enzyme activity in living cells. Here, this is the picture. I don't want to go into details. What I want to say is that this is one of the two inventions that I made. The picture and also the mechanism went into a textbook. This one, the other one, is the FM143. That was also incorporated into a neuroscience textbook. PMA is a core technology that allows you to detect viable pathogens, bacteria or virus, in the presence of dead ones. This technology has a superior advantage over traditional pathogen detection, like pathogenic bacteria, for example. You may have to culture the bacteria for days, and then sometimes you can't even culture because the environment changes. NASA uses this technology to study the microenvironment in the International Space Station, because it turns out bacteria and the viruses, they mutate much faster under microgravities. And so it's really important to study how those things like change things, maybe it becomes super resistant to drugs, to other things. And also sometimes when you send a spacecraft to an alien planet, like Mars, for example, you want to make sure you don't bring any species from Earth to an alien planet. So you need to check on that. Cool technology. We also have a food diagnostic company, to use this to do food safety. Once in a while you hear about the E. coli outbreak, hamburger and stuff. Traditionally, the detection, was based on the culture, I think this is a much better alternative, and hopefully companies out there, will think about using this for that purpose. And then this AccuBlue, AccuClear DNA quantitation technology is a super sensitive DNA detection technology. You can detect it as low as half a picogram of DNA. By far, the most sensitive among the computation. Illumina company is a company that's in the business of doing human genome sequencing. In the future, one day, it may be a routine that you submit a sample of yours, and then you have your genetic information stored there. But to do this, you need the DNA quantitation. So this technology has been licensed to Illumina to perform one of the steps leading to the sequencing. And the CF dyes, and we mentioned about Alexa dyes, and these dyes are developed to compete. Right now, at this point, we have a lot of more colors. And also, some of the dyes can do so-called super resolution, which is the Nobel Prize winning science a couple years ago, which allow you to see things with a resolution of tens of micrometers. It's amazing technology. So here's a list of the partners or companies that have licensed our technologies, or at the point worked with us very closely. And again, these companies, even though they are separate, you have employees going from one company to another company. So their reputation, right, the company that they worked with, they had a service with kind of spread. You know, just things just start to mushroom. We start to do good things. You know, we are no longer 1,500 square feet anymore. We are now 50,000 square feet, and located in Fremont, in a very nice location, close to a freeway. Behind this building is the Tesla motor. And next to that is Thermo Fisher's new campus. Of course, I know I couldn't have done all this myself. It was truly a teamwork. Working as a team, this is something maybe underappreciated in a university. But in a company, there are so many functions. Everything has to work perfectly, right, in order to make things happen. So working together is extremely important. And I have amazing people in my company. And almost half of our employees are PhD scientists, because we do a lot of research. Just keep innovating, playing with stuff every day. It's really fun. This picture actually was taken a couple of years ago. I should update this. We have a few more people. So now I have 2 or 3 more slides to talk a little bit about this pharmaceutical company. So how did we start this? Oh. It all started at the MIT lab when my business partner, Go-Sung Liu, was a neuroscience professor. One day, one of his postdocs, just by accident, was looking at the image, like what you're seeing now. So what you're seeing now are 2 neurons, 2 hippocampal neurons, trying to communicate. And all the green dots you're seeing are the green fluorescence. Coming from that dye, remember, the FM143? This is after 15 years following the invention. The more green dots you are seeing, it means there are more communication, there are more synapses. And that's what you want in your brain. Because when you grow, develop from an infant to an adult to 20-something, the number of synapse connectivity in your brain just keeps going up. You become smarter. You have better memory. But after 21, unfortunately, right, all start to lose the synapses. Our memory, start to fade, especially when you get to more advanced ages. And if you're unfortunate that you have Alzheimer's disease, you're going to lose a lot of synapses. So what was strange to her was that for whatever reason, the number of green dots were 30% more than what she usually sees. So she figured out eventually. It was due to a mistake she made. She accidentally added more magnesium. So this was highly reproducible. Within a concentration of magnesium concentration, you almost see some linear relationship. More higher magnesium, more synaptic activities. This is serious stuff. This is really important stuff. Because if you could replicate this in your brain, that's a huge breakthrough. That's a huge thing. So my friend got really excited after having this result. So he called me. He said, I have this amazing invention, I have something that can increase the number of synapses. Can we start a company, together? I said, what company did you use? And he said, magnesium chloride. Then I just started laughing. I said, great, maybe one day you get a Nobel Prize, right? It's good for you. But to start a business with magnesium chloride, there's no way, because it's everywhere, right? You might as well go to the ocean, drink some ocean water, get a magnesium there. But, these results were really intriguing to me, because of course, I knew the significance, knowing a little bit of neuroscience. Could we do something? I kept asking myself. I kept thinking over the weeks, and then I realized, wow, it's actually not so simple. Because to have this thing happen in the brain, you would need to send the magnesium all the way from your GI tract, if you take it orally, to your bloodstream, and then go across the blood-brain barrier, which is normally very difficult, and then go to the brain eventually, and then finally go inside the neuron. There are too many hurdles, a lot of challenges. Challenges are always opportunities. So that gave me something to think about. And also I realized at the time, magnesium compounds are frequently prescribed by doctors for treating constipations. Imagine, you have diarrhea, with this magnesium thing every day for 2 weeks. You'll probably be dead, because all the nutrients will be gone, and plus you will be dehydrated. It will be a huge problem. So maybe we could do something. So then I started working, applying my chemistry knowledge in my own lab at that time. So I was mainly focusing on how to solve this laxative effect, how to make it less likely to cause diarrhea. I didn't really think ahead about the blood-brain barrier and all the other things. I wasn't that smart. I wouldn't know how to do that. Okay, I was just focusing on that. So it was months and months of research. It was, I think, a really good journey of scientific reasoning based on good chemistry, understanding of chemistry. Eventually, I come up with a short list, maybe 4 or 5 compounds. I said, good luck. I hope one of them, will be the magic bullet that will work for us. Things just happened from there. It just happened that the one that I had the most hope worked. What can I say, right? Just happened. So good luck. It happened. So that compound is called magnesium threonate. This magic. It sends magnesium all the way from GI tract to bloodstream, crossing the blood barrier, go to the, your brain, and then eventually go into the neurons. And this magic. We did thousands of animal tests. At that time, he moved to China because it was cheaper to conduct those animal tests, right? It was just amazing results. It worked like a wonder. We had a lot of, I just want to show you the point of why synaptic density is important. Look at this graph. This is published in the literature. This is not our own study, right? So here is the synaptic density of AD patients. And here's age-matched controls. For AD patients, you see, you lose almost like 40% of the synapses. And there's a correlation. The lower the synaptic density, the lower the cognitive function. This is MMSE, some sort of cognitive score. So combining this piece of information with what our compound can do makes sense, right? So I want to show you some results. Just I don't want to show you too many to get you too excited, okay, right? So this is the brain section of animals without drug treatment versus after drug. You see the more green dots? And if you digitize this, it turned out the difference to be this big, almost about 40% difference, okay? And luckily and happily to our expectation, there is a correlation. Higher the synaptic density, the better the cognitive score. So there is a correlation. So at this point, you may say, or maybe especially if you're a biologist, so what? Other people have cured AD cancers in little animals, many times over. There's nothing new, right? Show me it works in human. I agree, That's why I'm cautious. But the good news is, 2 years ago, we did a human study at a Miami Research Center, contracted out by a third party. The results were very impressive, very good. But that study was done by on people, I shouldn't say are considered patients. They're just people within the age range of 50-something to 70-something who were suffering from some memory decline, maybe some sleep problems. We did a 12 weeks study. It was very clear. the compound was working. And then most recently, last year, we had a collaboration at Stanford with a professor there. We tried in real AD people, but that was a very small sample because to recruit AD patients is very expensive, and we just wanted to have a proof of concept so that we can show the data to investors. Look, right? Well, once the step, we have gone to the next step, but so you should be willing to give us money, to help us to go to the next step, right? So that's okay. My last slide here. If some of you maybe were dozing off, didn't remember what I said, there are two take-home messages. Maybe you can remember. It's just purely my experience, right? The first one is that try something new. Step out of your comfort zone. In my case, I did it. Organic chemistry, then I tried organic chemistry and then learned biology, and then worked in medical devices, and then now work with my neuroscience research partner. I had good luck, worked for me. Secondly, you must know that people have told you that, invention is a process of connecting dots. And I remember, I don't know if you know this great inventor called Dean Carman. He's considered to be, some people call him the modern Edison. At one time, I had the fortune, the privilege to meet him when I was working at Theracents. He's the one who invented this insulin pump and also the Segway. He has something like 600 or 700 patents, something like that. So one time he was interviewed. The interviewer asked him, how did he come up with all the ideas? He said, all I do is connecting dots. And normally I'm presented with exactly the same information that other people see. Somehow I just know how to connect. I cannot agree. I can't agree more, right? But I would add on that a big part of that, maybe even more time-consuming part, is to collect those dots in the first place. Because if you don't have those dots, how do you connect? Right? You need more information. When I was in graduate school, I always thought that I understood chemistry. But I was extremely frustrated. Why all those professors, right, have all these exciting ideas? They have grant proposal, publishing stuff. How come I couldn't come up with those original ideas? That question, was with me for a long time until many years later. Then I realized I didn't have enough information. I need more dots of information so that I can connect. You cannot invent it without information, So to me, it seems to me, of course, in school you collect some dots. When you go to graduate school, you collect more dots, maybe higher quality dots. When you cross a field into other field, I'm telling you, sometimes you collect the most valuable dots. When you have all of that in front of you, you can start making things out of that. That's how invention happens. Thank you. So, if you have any questions,
We have time for a few questions.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What's your presence in other countries in Europe and Asia?
For my first company, we have international distributors in all the other countries, all the regions. And actually, 30% of our sales is from international. For the Neurocentra, this pharmaceutical company, we formed a joint venture company in China because that's just a way for us to get some funding, but we plan to concentrate our R&D effort in the United States. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so there is a
Thank you.
reception
Yeah. You can ask me more if you have more questions, right, later. Yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, thank you.